Key lessons over the last 2 years is that warfare is never stagnant, but the evolution of warfare and the pace of induction of new technologies during the Ukraine-Russia war and by Houthi rebels operating from a part of Yemen are a wake-up call to military forces around the world. Drone warfare isn't a scene out of the Terminator movies. Drones have already begun to redefine the modern battlefield. Conventional weapon systems also need to evolve to meet new challenges and to achieve new technical requirements to defeat the enemy. We have a wonderful panel today, real thinkers about what the future of warfare is going to be. Among them, Sameer Joshi. He's an innovator in the Indian drone space in the country. Atul Dinkar, the Director General of the Defence Research and Development Organization. He's also the CEO and MD of BrahMos, the company which builds arguably the finest anti-ship cruise missile in the world. We're also joined by Lieutenant General Sunil Srivastav, the former Director at the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, and General Amit Sharma, the former Commander-in-Chief of India's Nuclear Command. Wonderful having all of you. Sameer, let me come to you first. The last 2 years and warfare seems to have been completely altered by what we are seeing on the Russia-Ukraine front. How is drone warfare here to stay?
So, Vishnu, of course, everybody have been part of this roller coaster ride, which is being seen in the Russo-Ukraine conflict in the last 2 years. There has been a very, very significant spike in the way robotic platforms are being used. In fact, this is the war where all three facets of drone warfare, aerial, terrestrial, as well as surface, are very, very visible. It is clearly indicating to the future and the doctrinal shift, what is happening across the world, that robots are here to play. In the next 5 to 10 years, robotic platforms will definitely be 10 to 15% of all organization levels across the world in all major armed forces. And it is very, very essential to have robotic layers between your manned elements and the enemy's objectives. So this has largely been driven by two aspects, and which is also coming up very openly in the Ukraine war. First is the commoditization of autonomy. You know, autonomy is a feature which lets you spend a very long amount of time over a battle space. You know, since the human is not involved, there is no human limitation to prohibit a robotic platform to spend a large amount of time, which is termed as persistence over the TBA, the tactical battlefield area. The second facet is the large availability of AI and the threads which are powering them. Artificial intelligence can give shape to very, very creative concept of operations and employment, which the general very rightfully mentioned. This combination of autonomy and AI over and rapid proliferation of these in the last about 8 to 10 years is giving shape to new class of robotic behavior, grades of robotic platforms, uncrewed platforms, and these are so the right place to see them, of course, is go through all the videos of the Ukraine war, which are being bombarded on us on a daily basis. But at the same time, highlights of this now is being seen in the top grade programs across the world, coming from the most, the best developed companies, right down to very, very low scale and cheap platforms being utilized, across the world. Even a meaningful intelligence layer over a very cheap drone makes it very, very powerful. And this is being seen to a great, great effect across the world. And I think here the advent and here a dimensional disruption is taking place all across the world. The next, disruption in warfare, which is very, very visible, is happening right in front of eyes. And any organization across the world not taking notice of this and sticking to the legacy behavior will tend or will definitely suffer in the days ahead, simply because the OODA loop closure by robotic behavior is far faster than anything which a man can deploy. And this definitely, ladies and gentlemen, is the future of warfare in the years ahead.
General Srivastav, one of the concerns is that legacy systems are expensive when it comes to taking on small drones in the battlefield. Of course, drones come in all sizes and shapes and costs. But FPV drones, first-person view drones, which have been employed on the Ukraine-Russia battlefront against tanks, against infantry formations, cost barely a few $100 in some cases, or just a few $1,000 in other cases. But to actually intercept such platforms mean spending surface-to-air missiles in cases which can cost nearly $1 million for small surface-to-air missiles, shoulder-launched. There's a huge disparity over here. How does one effectively counter drones on the battlefield?
Yeah, thank you, Vishnu. Thank you for that question, and thank you for inviting me to be on this panel.
Sir.
Yeah. So before I answer your question as to how do we counter drones, I'll agree with Sameer on everything that he has said, but I would like to add another nuanced experience that everybody is seeing happening, unfolding in Ukraine, and that is the ecosystem which both the sides have built towards exploitation of drones. A cottage industry, volunteers, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, being flown by soldiers, by hobbyists, and the like. And this is producing drones without being trial evaluated, producing a variety of drones working on variety of frequencies to which their own counter-jamming systems may not be aware, and yet suffering an attrition of about 80-90% and more. Coming now to the attrition part, I'll explain that.
Yes.
But yet carrying on with the use of drones, because as some senior Ukrainian general said, that sometimes it works for me better than artillery. They've got less shells available. So drones are letting them stay in the fight. That's the importance.
Yeah.
Okay, about countering drones.
Yeah.
So therefore, as I said, a very high attrition rate on both sides explains that everything that is being done over there, and it's being done as they fight. No proven systems were there with either side, and yet they are doing countering a drone, throwing nets around them. Laser systems have not been used as yet, though it surprises me because Russia was supposed to be pretty way ahead as far as laser systems are concerned. But the most effective way of downing drones as of now in this war appears to be electronic warfare. And to my mind, I mean, the density of electronic warfare systems, that's another lesson. Every 10 kilometers frontage, you have an electronic warfare system deployed. Many armies may not be kind of very confident of using electronic warfare systems in this manner. It requires a whole lot of coordination. Which other frequencies might be affected? So therefore, it's learning as they are going. But to my mind, the best way of downing them besides electronic warfare would be laser systems, the iron beam that the Israelis have got. I'm told that the Israelis have started using it. Iron beam would be an effective way of doing it.
Power generation, of course, and the source of power is a concern in the battlefield.
True.
But before I go across to my other panelists, let me go back to Sameer. In the case of the war between Russia and Ukraine, you've got the Ukrainian Navy, which doesn't have a navy, effectively get the entire Russian fleet in the Black Sea back into port. Whenever they come out, you've got suicide drones, target them. And these are targeted, even in the last 48 hours we've seen, one drone clearly operated by an operator hits a particular ship, a second drone tries to get in to that very same area, a third drone does the same, ultimately to sink the warship. As you look at autonomous systems going forward, because this has got a man in the loop, what is the future of naval warfare?
So Vishnu, Ukrainians have gone back to the first principle. The first principle being generation of combat mass over a certain area. Now this can be through robotic platforms or through human on-the-loop platforms which are controlling those robotic assets, or primarily through pure algorithm-based autonomous agents. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everything what you see happening in Ukraine will gradually bias from human on the loop to human in the loop. There are rampant developments happening across the world where algorithm is starting to take more and more prominence. and it is going to be getting into the field of cooperative robotics. We already have swarm drones with the Indian Army, which are deployed right at the operational scenarios. Similar effort of decentralized swarming, not something what you see in the light shows, they are formation flying. Decentralized swarming is what is going to be very visible. Ukrainians generating that combat mass with a large number of these unmanned surface vehicles. So their strategy is very simple. You generate this mass at the vital points, the choke points. Russians have to get out, and to be very frank, Russians have been found to be an edge, behind at this stage, more reactive to what the Ukrainians are throwing at them. And the Ukrainians on their side are just having that right number of boats to start initiating those attacks. And just be, when we take a look at this, and as late as what we saw yesterday in the attack on the Russian ship, there were 10 unmanned surface vehicles. Now, all these are attacking in their own sense, in a very, very decentralized manners. Of course, each one of them has a human operator as of now. But the degree of difficulty is so high because you, by creating that combat mask, are creating a saturation over that limited area. That is what will positively get you through the layers of defenses. And this is how the doctrinal shift, what I was mentioning to in my previous message, is actually going on right at a tactical level, and when you start to deploy it, it expands right to the strategic level. Ukrainians, by creating that combat mass, are adding more and more layers of difficulty for any kind of defense which the Russians can put across. This is a change which is well noticed all across by naval, tacticians. This is a change which is coming up. Everybody is getting into USVs. Surprisingly, it was the Iranians back in the 2000s who came up with this concept. Of course, it was all human powered, but there is more than enough evidence that across the world efforts and starting right from the US, China, a lot of focus is going on USVs, which are going to be autonomous, decentralized, talking to each other, planning through a tactical aspect to attack a certain target. And again, this is where the naval warfare is definitely going towards.
Yeah. General Sharma, you're a tank man, right? Yeah. You've spent decades fighting on tanks or preparing to fight on tanks. Now, we've gone beyond the arguments on whether a tank is still useful on the war front. It quite clearly is. But the tanks are also extremely defenseless in the face of anti-tank guided missiles of a new generation, of FPV drones which are being used as well, a new generation of landmines. What is the future of tank warfare?
I think this question has been asked so many times at every gathering you go. Look, when some new technology comes in, you feel that a piece of equipment is of no use and it goes out. But it's not like that. You've got to find a counter to it. Now, what is the job of a tank in a battlefield? Let's start from there. A tank is the only piece of equipment that can enable the infantry fighting alongside to move up and capture an objective, and after you've captured it, it provides a staying power to the troops so that they can beat back the enemy. So that is the basic job of a tank. Now you can't say that that job cannot be done and should not be done. So the tank stays, the infantry stays. Why we've seen so many casualties in Ukraine, the Russian casualties at the initial stages and the Ukrainian casualty during the counterattack of tanks, is I think three things: tactics, training, and technology. Technology is what it is. It is the tactics and the training. Please remember that any arm or any piece of equipment has to be employed in an integrated manner. Now, when armor moves, in Indian Army, you call it a combat team at the lowest level, combat group and a combat command at a brigade level. What it means is you've got the armor moving, along you've got mechanized infantry moving, along with that you've got air support, helicopter support, and now drones. You've got the artillery self-propelled moving behind. You've got the communications, engineers, etc. So you're moving as a combined group. Where the Russians went wrong, I think, you only saw lines of tanks on highways with no logistic support. They had no infantry support. They had no air support, very surprisingly. And they are sitting ducks for even a guy with a handheld weapon. So I think what went wrong was basically training and tactics. And in the Indian Army, we are very particular on our basic trainings. And there is no question of tanks moving on a highway. Tanks are not meant to move on the highway, they move off the road. And the Ukrainians, again, during the counterattack, what happened? The Russians went in for World War II kind of defenses. They had trenches dug out, they had minefields laid on, and they had handheld weapons. The Ukrainians trying to get across the minefield with those mine trawls and things like this, it's chugging way across, and they were sitting ducks again. So you've got to change. See, the ground has to be captured, the ground has to be defended. But as technology changes, you've got to change your procedures. I would say that instead of trying to cross a minefield with tank plows and, trawls and all, you should have gone in for fuel air explosives.
Yeah.
You should have gone in for thermobaric weapons to soften the defenses. You see, so weapon systems have to change. What is futuristic tomorrow, that'll be the order of the day. So warfare has to keep changing every time. So I feel you employ your correct tactics, you go and combine battle groups, and you're safe. As far as a point about the drones, what we've been mentioning, yeah, what a lot of good stuff has been said. You see, drones is not something new. Armenia, Azerbaijan, you saw so much of drone warfare. We've had drones, or UAVs as we called it earlier, in strike formations. I commanded a corps about 10 years back, and we had a pack of Herons with us. But then they were used only at a very high level. Today, drones have kept in at the soldier level. What you got to see is, one, what do you want to achieve in an operation, whatever that operation be. And then you see as to what is the technology that could be available with your adversary. And three is, how do you counter that? So if you're talking of drone warfare, well, to counter a drone, you've got to work out counter-drone systems. Where there's laser systems, you can't have missiles knocking off drones. It doesn't sound logical. So I guess we're working on it. You go in for laser kind of stuff, plus protection that on top of tanks. A little later, you found that they had those steel-covered railings, etc., as top attack protection, cheap protection. So I guess everything that should be objective-based as to what do you want to achieve, how do you incorporate training into it, and how do you become a winner after that? Yeah.
Mr. Dinkar, as the CEO and MD of BrahMos Airspace, you deal with a weapon system which has transformed the Indian Navy. Could you tell us a little bit about how the BrahMos over a period of time has evolved and how that growth potential is huge when it comes to our projected requirements?
First of all, thank you, Vishnu, for staying in the syllabus. It's the main thing. But thank you for having me here. Yeah, we are far away from the drone warfare and tanks particularly. BrahMos, when we started off as an anti-ship missile. That's why everyone says Navy. But as warfare moves, as requirements begin to come in, technology grows, the BrahMos missile has evolved. What has happened is, it's not just that it flies 300 kilometers and hits its target. It needs to fly reliably 300 kilometers and hit its target. It should fly 300 kilometers and hit a ship from a group of ships. You start off with an anti-ship missile against one ship, but then it became a group of ships. From a group of ships, it became, why only one missile at a time? Why not a salvo? So these are the various, the evolution it has gone through. But we didn't stop at being an anti-ship missile. The Indian Navy, or any Navy of the world in the future, has to go close to land. And what we were talking about, the surface drones which were there for the what we saw yesterday, maybe they should have been taken out before they came out of the harbor. That means a ship-launched land attack missile. So the same missile, a universal missile, that is the same cartridge, can hit a ship or the land. This is another evolution we took. We've had many more things after that, but the most recent launch which we had from one of the frontline Indian naval ships has proven not only that we have the latest technologies available, but indigenous too.
And flying at ranges which have never been seen before for this weapon system.
Absolutely.
And you aren't going to tell me the range that it flew to, right?
Ranges are with the armed forces. They have the missile. They use it at what range is possible.
One of the biggest evolution points for the BrahMos was the sensors. It came with Russian sensors. You have now the seekers. You've indigenized them as well. Could you tell us about how challenging that process was?
When we started this whole process of a joint venture with Russia, it's always it's wonderful to hear that people are still having Russia in with them, and we are one of them, and we are very proud of it too. There was a process stock which was available with the Russians, and there was a process stock which was available with this. What I mean by process stock is technologies available with both sides. We married these two technologies together, matching technologies, and created the BrahMos missile. Yes, DRDO, when they started their work journey with BrahMos, and when the BrahMos company was formed, we were just 10% indigenous content in the whole thing. It's been a long journey, 25 years. We have a wonderful supply chain of people giving us components, moving into another manufacturer. I mean, what Puneet was saying is exactly what BrahMos has gone through, but at a little larger level, looking at a little different side. But we are there, and it's a difficult journey, but can be talked about too much also.
Can the BrahMos be defeated?
Till the current geopolitical conflict, that is the Ukraine war, it was, everyone said it is unbeatable. Yes, the geopolitical conflict showed that the BrahMos Zero, the Onyx missile which is there with the Russians, is very, very similar to BrahMos, is what everyone says. It isn't. That's a dinosaur. BrahMos is modern. And from that conflict, we have understood that, yes, today, even today, maybe about 90% of the BrahMoses will hit target, even in a conflict of what is there happening today.
Yeah. And I think the other part of the BrahMos is the rocketry itself. The rocketry enables this very large missile to fly at Mach 2.8 plus, to conduct terminal S-shaped maneuvers going up to 12 G. In other words, making it impossible for any known defensive system to reliably intercept it. So it's not just the seeker that we talk about, but it's also the rocketry and the way in which the missile is launched, which is somewhat unusual compared to what other countries have.
Yeah, you see, using a liquid ramjet, the whole world started off on ramjets. They went the solid route. Well, some people started work on the liquid ramjets, and they left it saying that it's too expensive. And the timeline for development of a liquid ramjet is long. One country held on to it, and that was Russia. They went through it. They developed this mean engine which is there, which now has been shared with us in India. It's a work of art, and I may share it. I hope he's watching. There was an engineer who was looking at this engine at one time, and I asked him, Subhash, what do you say? He says, this is even more beautiful than any Russian woman I've seen. That's how intricate that machinery is.
Yeah.
And it's really something.
No, it truly is. And the missile has also become smaller for use with the Indian Air Force, and lighter, which would have been an engineering challenge, a massive one.
We are working on it. We have finished the blueprint stage. We are getting into cutting metal. We're just waiting for collecting a bit of funds, because it requires a lot of funds to go into a new development. But yes, the current BrahMos, what people see, is going to be about 1/2 to 1/3 its size, half of its weight, able to put 2 of the BrahMoses on a single aircraft. Right now, the BrahMos air version is one BrahMos under the belly of the Su-30, the heaviest armament that the Su-30 carries. We should be there doing a flight trial by the end of next year. And BrahMos Aerospace always has a charm. We say we'll do it by such and such date. It's done. So I would say by middle of 2026, we would be able to do induction into the Indian Air Force.
That's absolutely remarkable. And a final question, hypersonics. You already have a very fast missile. Are you working towards that as the next step?
In fact, I was treading down that path in your earlier question. People left the ramjet and started working on other things. The Russians stayed on the liquid ramjet, and they have a hypersonic missile. Now, when we say hypersonics, there are two types. There's the cruise vehicle, and there's also the glide vehicle. I'm talking about the hypersonic cruise. The hypersonic cruise today, as a weaponizable item, is there with the Russians. Why they have not used it, or maybe it's not yet fully ready, well, that's a question. That means the technology is through this ramjet. Now, may not be this ramjet, but one of the similar ramjets. The Western world has restarted working on liquid ramjets. They've been working on cruise, hypersonic cruise. I will be not telling the truth if I say we are not working on hypersonics.
So you are working on it.
Our partners who are our design partners, that because BrahMos Aerospace is a partnership between two design agencies, the DRDO and NPO Marsh of Russia. They are working on hypersonics. The puzzle soon, and who else is left to do the production? It's BrahMos Aerospace.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. It's been an absolutely fascinating session which looks at some of the emerging that we need to consider, but also when you talk about the disruptive patterns in warfare, evolving concerns and threats, and we also need to look at what exists presently in the conventional sense, and BrahMos certainly is that, but it's a weapon system that's quite clearly evolving. From all of us over here, thank you very much. We've got one more fantastic session coming up.